Now, as we conclude today, once again, looking at the world as we see it, and I've been a believer now, I'm in my 40th year as a believer. And so I'm not one of those people that could tell you the day that it happened, but I know the year. I know where I was at the end of 1985 into the beginning of 1986. Gosh, we're getting really close to it. We're only actually 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks from when I proposed to my wife 40 years ago. Oh my gosh. So the idea of being a believer for that length of time, I've been a believer for over 40 years. And yet I see the world in a place of trouble like I've never seen it before. And so not talking about war, but just the mentality of people. And first of all, the rejection of God in day-to-day life is like we've not seen it before. But the anger and the fury and the violence and the hatred is unlike what we've seen before. The rejection of God for just what should be obvious things when it comes to the idea of gender and the assignment of gender and all that kind of stuff. And you know, even we were hearing this debated in the Supreme Court last week, I think, that you have some of them that are so beholden to it that some of the Supreme Court justices won't even believe that you can say a person's a male and a person's a female and the DNA doesn't lie. There's no way around it. They're still trying to act as though it's not a biological, but it's a psychological thing. And who would have ever thought that we would be in the place where the Supreme Court would have to debate something so obvious? But such is the idea of the rebellion of mankind and how it just seems to know no limits. So when I look at that, or I watched the reactions that there were when the president spoke at Davos, and the reaction, and it was intended to just, you could see he said things because he knew that it would have a reaction. But it's an interesting thing, and people a lot of times don't get it here. I'll just speak very, very briefly on the political stuff. With the current administration, the way that it is, he doesn't try to do things like a politician, and that really bothers some people. A politician is going to try to measure every single word, and they're worried about what the reaction of people is going to be, so you never really get an idea just what it is that they believe, because they're concealing it. They're not going to come right out and say it. Our president, love him or hate him, you always know where he stands, and he says whatever's on his mind. He's not a politician. He's not worried about the next election cycle. He's not worried about his legacy. He's going to go back to private life after 2028. He'll probably have plenty to say, but he's going to go back to being the developer guy. So that's what's just so different about him than most politicians that we're used to, because most of the guys, by the time that they reach the presidency, have been in politics all their lives, and it's all that they know. So they're always playing to an audience. And so does he play to an audience? You better believe he does, but not for political reasons like some of these other ones do. But what that ends up doing is it creates in people a fury and a rage like I've never seen before. So all the stuff that we find happening about immigration and deportations and all that stuff, the same people who are so enraged and just are losing their mind about this stuff don't even realize that the past presidents had been deporting people by the millions, and you never heard anybody talk about it. But this is all going to just this idea that there is such a rage among the people like I've not seen before, but we also see so many of the other things that Jesus told us would be kind of precursors to what will be ultimately the tribulation. We see it, and we'll get to it in Matthew 24 when we get there weeks from now. So ultimately, the world will be in a place of turmoil, and it will have to be different somehow, some way than what we've seen all along. Because there's always been these things. The idea of wars and rumors of wars and false prophets and all that stuff, they've been with us forever. But there's something about what Jesus talks about there, because it's going to have to be different, because he makes mention of it before the return of the Lord, before the day of the Lord. So as we kind of work our minds through and are, working through that, looking at the world around us, do we expect that it would be going in the wrong direction as we get closer to his return? There is a large element of the church who believes totally different from that. They believe that what we are here to do is to make Jesus known, however they say that's supposed to be done, and we'll find that it will ultimately help to usher in the kingdom of God because of the work that we do in the world. So all that they should be able to do to test their theory is to say, let's look at the scoreboard and see how we're doing. So the world is really moving further and further away from any resemblance of a godly people. if it ever had it in whatever extent that it did. In our country, there was definitely a time when the general population was much more careful about the things that we would think, even if they didn't go to church every week or anything else, the way that they conducted their lives was much more in a biblical sense than what we see currently. Now it's almost vogue for a couple of things, either to be completely rejecting of anything biblical, or the ones who want to try to play both sides of it. To claim to be a Christian, because we're reading the stories, you probably have these people that are, quote, turning to religion, and then you start to read the details of the stories, and they're playing around the edges. It's not that they've dedicated themselves to the systematic study of God's Word and learning who He is, but they're identifying with whatever product is being sold. So most of the churches we see around us today is more just kind of the consumer grade, let's identify with Christianity, but they have no idea what it is that they ultimately believe. And if you don't believe me, take a look at any of you in wherever it is that you live, go and look at the 3 biggest churches and go watch one of the Bible studies or one of the church services, and you tell me what you're finding of value in the things that are being spoken of over the pulpit. And I'll show you a church that's going through the motions. So the very big churches, by and large, and of course I can't broad brush it all, but much of what we see in modern Western Christianity couldn't survive if we were being persecuted. The church that would go underground would be a very small portion of that, but most of them would fold. People would say, I didn't sign up for this problem, but that's what it's like in most of the rest of the world. So it's just an interesting time to be alive, and I do definitely see that it's a time when we're going to be just seeing more and more division. Right here, Jesus tells us that there would be division when we bring His name, but I'm seeing division just because of even political decisions. So there's this interesting thing that we find. It's a dynamic in the church, and we'll conclude with this. The church, there are some in the church that believe that the church should be very, very involved in every single aspect of politics and every bit of what the world is about. And if we will just infiltrate those parts of the church, some call it 7 mountains, but just the mentality behind it, forget what the labels are. Just the idea that the church, if it could just get involved in all these different things, would somehow be able to change the trajectory. And so you will find people that will really advocate for those kind of things. If it's just one more election cycle, if we just get these people elected, we can turn the tide a different way. I'm personally one of those people who does not just disengage when it comes to political things. I'm very involved with that, as you all know, those of you that have been around for any length of time. But I don't believe that we're one election cycle away from things getting better. We are definitely one election cycle away from things getting much worse. Ask the people that are in, say, Virginia or New Jersey. They're about to find out, or New York City. But things can go very, very wrong in one generation or one election cycle. The best that you can hope for is to stop the bleeding in one particular election cycle, but we're on a trajectory that's not going to get any better, I don't believe, because the rest of the world is in the same direction. And I expect to see all of that upheaval in the world before the Lord returns. So when He says that when the Son of Man returns, Jesus says, will He find faith on the earth? We've looked at that passage before. So what is it that is the call to the Christian? Jesus says a very interesting thing, also quoting it from chapter 17. Read the whole prayer. But John 17 tells us where Jesus mentions that we are of this world, but we are not, or we're in this world rather, but we're not of this world. And there is a big difference. We live in this world. We're not supposed to disengage from this world or only partially engage. That's why I don't believe that if God's given us a voice that we don't use it in everything, in our vote, in our political view, and in making Him known that way, and in every particular way. I don't think He calls us to engage in some things and disengage in others. So we're in this world, and if He's put us in it, with whatever we're able to do, we should affect it in any way that we can. So in this world, but we're not of it. It is not our home in a permanent sense. It is just a place in which we are traveling. So for us here, as we watch these things going down, it's a broken, irreparably broken world. It's not going to get better. If we believe, as I think I see and read from the scriptures, I don't expect it to get any better. Not until He brings it to an end. Because, again, the tribulation is not a time of revival among the church. It's not a time of revival among the world, as far as the world is concerned. It will be a drawing of a remnant of Israel back to the Lord in those days under terrible, terrible persecution, but the world is then being judged at the tribulation. And to think that everything is just wonderful before that happens, you're not reading the text. the text just shows that the run up to it, remember when Jesus talked about wars, rumors of wars, famine, pestilence, he said these are the beginnings of sorrow. So all of that run up that's there is just, there's going to be a lot of stuff well before the tribulation. It's just moving in that direction. So I look at the world, and when I see it melt down, I can be shocked by what I see with my eyes, but I'm not surprised. It's something that I expect, but it's really weird when you actually see it. There's a difference between those two things. So for us, we are in this world, we're not of this world. We may be shocked by the things that we see, but we are not surprised because we expect them to be so. And if you put any kind of real hope in the institutions of man or the things of this world, you're looking in the wrong direction. This is a fallen, broken creation that is really starting to move to an end and a culmination of things as we understand them, I believe, as I look at the Bible. Definitely this world is different than when I first got saved. I got saved in the mid-'80s. Yeah, there was all kinds of just, the indulgences of people, but it was different then. The way that people conducted themselves, the stuff that they would believe about the most basic of element things. Again, probably the one that is so easy for us to track because we see it everywhere is the idea that people can identify as whatever they want to, and who cares what biology says. They will deny that, and they will be the ones who tell us that we have to accept what it is that they're saying. And in some places around the world, if you deny that, you can be prosecuted. So we're moving into uncharted territory, I believe, but it tells me where we are in the lateness of the days. It's a fallen creation. It's broken, irreparably so. So I don't expect things to get any better. And so as long as we're here, take the opportunity that he puts before you, walk with him in a place of integrity, make him known, and do so in a way unapologetically, and it may even come at a cost of doing it. But we've just read that's precisely what we could expect as we read through what I've just said in Matthew chapter 10. If you're hearing this as just a reel or a short, we've just finished up with chapter 10, where Jesus says, I send you out as sheep among wolves. And he talks about the price that it may cost of discipleship. It's all of chapter 10 in the Gospel of Matthew. And so I do pray that you are blessed when you hear these things, again, helping us to understand where we are in time, not to be fearful, but eyes wide open, as he's already told us, to be wise as serpent, but harmless as doves in this world that increasingly grows further and further distant from him and colder to him by the day. So we will pick up at chapter 11 next week in the Gospel of Matthew. If you have any questions on any of what I've shared, want to talk to me about the Israel trip, you can contact me through the ministry's website, which is oldpaththeology.net, and I'd love to hear from you. You can do so through the email that's there, and I'd love to discuss any of these topics with you.